Welcome to Jets Rewind and JetsRewind.com. This is Marty Shupak. I'm in Valley Cottage, New York. I'm joined by Ray Clifford in Marysville, Ohio, and Ralph Sharega up in, where are you, Ralph?
Tom Brady's former favorite area.
Yeah, we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon at 5 o'clock. We're going to have our mock draft, our first 1.0. We're going to get to it in a second, but news broke about an hour and a half ago that Brian Flores is suing the New York Giants in the NFL, claiming that his interview with the Giants under the Rooney Rule was a sham interview, that their coach, Brian Dable, was hired before he was even interviewed. And in the middle of this, as part of the proof, is emails from Bill Belichick, who, like me, which I would do, he emailed the wrong Brian to congratulate him, Brian Flores. And it was, if you read the text, it's a very uncomfortable text. So I just want a quick reaction. First, Ralph, you're up in the belly of the beast, so let's hear from you.
Well, anything that messes with Belichick's reputation is fine with me. I think Brian Flores did an amazing job in Miami. I believe him when he said Steve Ross did that, because Steve Ross is like these rich owners. They think they can get away with anything. I hope it doesn't screw up his career. Like I was just saying before, if we needed a coach for the Jets, I'd be happy to have him. But, that's such a tight old boy net in the NFL that he could, he might not be able to get anything out for the rest of his career there.
Yeah, Ray, and your reaction is, this lawsuit, actually, he even stated that he might be sacrificing his career.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, if we think the Jets are bad, the Giants, boy, in the last few years, they have surpassed the Jets as a dysfunctional team, like by a mile.
And Ralph, I mentioned to Ray that the Jets have done a great job hiring, minority candidates, starting with Herm Edwards, Todd Bowles, who was qualified, and even now present coach, who's the first Muslim in the NFL. Now, part of it is that the Jets are always looking for coaches, and the Giants now have caught up, but the Giants have never hired a minority candidate. Ray, what's your reaction to this?
Well, I'm kind of on the fence about it. Not that I don't think it's no big deal, but I think the Rooney Rule's been a sham ever since it's been put in place. I don't think that, while I do believe, there should be more minority hirings, I think some guys have gotten passed over for years. But you want to tell me if I own a team that I'm not going to have final say in who I have coaching my team? I just find that, there's no way. If I, and the fact that they let it out of the bag sooner, what's the difference? I mean, basically I think that goes on all the time. Okay, we're required to interview 2 black candidates, so we're getting this guy, but we're going to bring these 2 in just to make the the NFL and the players, reps, or whoever the coaches, if they have a union, all those guys happy. But the reality is, who is the NFL or anybody else to tell an owner who he's going to hire, and that's almost how they're trying to start to push it. And they probably will take away draft picks, but in the end, I'm like, I think Brian Flores is a great coach too. I can't believe he got fired, and
now
so
we know why.
Now I didn't know that. Now I kind of know why. But
we were alluding to before we were on the air that it came out. Brian Flores is claiming that Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, offered him $100,000 for every game he lost because he wanted the top draft pick. So there's a lot involved. I happen to, at first, I was so against the Rooney Rule, but I happen to like it just because I just think the playing field is not level. And I agree with Ray in one respect. I want the best candidate available. It's resentful to me when Matt Rule, a part of the requirements to become a Jet coach is that they want to pick one of his coordinators, just as it is with Adam Gase, when he forced with Greg Williams. I think a head coach should be the most qualified person that they want. The Rooney Rule, I think, could open the door for some coaches to get a foot in, maybe as an assistant or something else. If they're the highest qualified, then they should be hired. Now, what I see, though, coming out of all this, which is going to probably come out by someone smarter than all three of us, is that today the Denver Broncos were officially put up for sale. I predict that they're going to be sold to a black owner. I really do. And you'll see them probably hire a black coach. And I know one of the people that wants to be involved in a black-owned franchise is Curtis Martin. And he's been working on it for a number of years. So that's my prediction. All right, let's get to any other comments before we get to the draft.
Yeah, just one thing about the Rooney Rule is it's really flawed. I agree with you, Ray.
Yeah.
But it's probably better than nothing. I know Mike Tomlin was one positive outcome of the Rooney Rule. They were shocked that he blew them away, and he's become a really good coach. So
Right.
It can work, but it's flawed. And I agree with you that, these owners get to choose who they want, but
Yeah,
I'm not against the Rooney Rule with its in theory. I mean, I understand they should have more chances, and they weren't getting them, so fine. I like that they've basically given incentive to these teams to hire
right.
coordinators, and they're giving them teams incentive to do that, because I think, like you said, Marty, I think that will lead to more jobs than just interviewing them, at whatever position.
Okay, absolutely. You're absolutely right. All right, let's get to the Jets Rewind draft. And again, first of all, I want to just apologize to some of those listeners that I had tweeted out on Twitter that it was going to be done by the weekend, and we had to delay it. But the parameters of this, and Ralph, we discussed it, is we're drafting like we are the GM, not like what we think Joe Douglas will draft. And we're going to be drafting 5 picks, 2 in the first, 2 in the second, 1 in the third. And of course, I didn't pick the 1 in the third, but I'll come up with someone. And we can't pick the same player. It doesn't matter what order we go in, because the pick is the pick. So I'm going to have Ralph start out. We're going to go Ralph, Ray, and Marty on the first one. So go ahead, Ralph. Your first pick. You're on the clock, number 4 for the New York Jets.
All right. I'm going to open with a statement. When was the last time the Jets had a legitimate edge rusher on their team?
John Abraham.
That's right. They drafted him 22 years ago. Now, what you didn't mention, Marty, is that we're kind of basing this number 4 pick on the assumption that Thibodeau, Hutchinson, and Evans are gone. I don't think any of us are going to pick them. Now, I want an edge rusher, and I think they got to pick one this year. They rushed them out there. And I would pick Thibodeau or Hutchinson if they were there. But assuming they're not there, I'm going to go with Hutchinson's book and teammate, David Ojabo, who I know I think he's going to rise in the boards. I think he is 1 and 1A with Thibodeau as the quickest guy, the best Ben in the draft. Yes, he's only had 1 year. But I don't want to hear anything about 1-year wonders. I can stay here all night telling you about 1-year wonders. Going back to Barry Sanders, who only had literally 1 year. He was behind Thurman Thomas. All these quarterbacks like Burrow, Kyler Murray, Mac Jones, Quinnen Williams. These guys were all just had 1 year. There's tons of them out there. The fact is, he had an incredibly productive year, and he looks great on tape. And I like his fire, and he's my pick.
Good pick, very good. And Ralph, I think it's a very good pick. I think it's a little bit of a reach, a little rich, but this I'll say, I think he has a higher ceiling than a lot of people think. So
well, that's what I'm basing it on.
Yeah. So I do think it's a good pick. Okay, Ray, your turn now.
Yeah, I'm not sure he wouldn't have been there at 10 though, but maybe he wouldn't. I mean,
right.
A lot of teams, a lot of this is we haven't seen him in the combine. We haven't.
Right.
Really got
things are going to change. My hunch is that he will rise.
We'll have
and
more.
that's why my first pick, could easily change after they start looking into things. And it's the one that everybody says. I think it'll be Stingley, but he's got injuries and he may be he may be slipping more than people think. But we need a DB badly, and if he's as good as they advertise, I'm going to go with it at this point.
Well, he's ability wise, Ray. I think he's.
Well, yeah, I mean he showed, but he's had 2 years of injuries, so
he just had. Yeah, I mean, apparently his freshman year, the guy was off the charts.
yeah.
So that it's not a bad pick. I've seen him on a lot of lists. Just so you know, talking about defensive backs, I happen to like this guy. I guess at Cincinnati,
Ahmed Gardner.
Sauce Gardner. Yeah, I think he's really good. I mean, when it comes to defensive backs, and I might.
Is that your pick?
No, I'm just giving that for a comment. My pick, you're not going to like, Ralph. All right, here's my pick at number 4. And I did this, and it's a pick that Joe Douglas will not pick. It's not in his DNA, but
Hunter?
Kyle Hamilton, the safety. And I'll tell you why I picked him. Very rarely do you have a guy that really stands out, that like a talent like this. I'd compare talent-wise a guy like Quentin Nelson and Kyle Pitts. And everything I read is that he's like almost one of a kind, off the charts, as a safety who could also play linebacker, and his frame is going to fill out, and he could do almost everything a safety and a linebacker could do. Now, I've seen comparisons, and the guy that they compare him to is a guy I really like, this guy from the Arizona Cardinals, Isaiah Simmons, who this guy has played defensive end, cornerback, and safety. Of course, Hamilton can't play defensive end, but the last 2 years, I'm so sick and tired, not just the Jets, watching 2 years ago the Raider game and this year the Tampa Bay game, of a player getting behind the safety for no apparent reason. I see it in every playoff game now too, that these safeties, these receivers are getting behind them. I want a guy that has incredible ability, but also has smarts about him and instinct. And I think going against what I want the Jets to do overall, though, I want Kyle Hamilton as a New York Jet this April.
Yeah.
A lot of people consider him the best player in the draft. And of course, the Jets always get the best player in the draft. And he never ends up being that. But
Yeah.
Look, Marty, the Jets have so many holes. They need really good players. And I would be happy with the guy. I just think philosophically, what happens if he has 2 dynamite years, he outplays his contract, and he goes to Douglas and says, I want $20 million. He's in the same position he is with Jamal Adams. So I think while it'd be great to have him on the team, I don't think it's realistic. And as far as Stingley goes, Ray, I have read so many times that Saleh feels that his scheme, he doesn't need like elite shutdown cornerbacks. He can get by with guys, like he cobbles together like Eccles and Hall and whatever. So I wonder about that pick too, realistically, for the Jets. Although, with him, I don't, he's a kind of a 1-year wonder, except it was the first year. So it's, and he's had 2. So I feel like he's slipping a little myself.
It's hard to judge that though, because when he has an off year because he's had injuries, and they're the biggest concern I have, is I don't want some guy who's going to be like Mekhi Becton and
or
off the field more than
D. Milner,
or half these guys we end up with, and and Marty, that was going to be if I didn't take him. I was saying Kyle Hamilton, but I kind of like where you went, Ralph, because I'm like, we need an edge rusher, but the 2 best ones, supposedly best ones when they get there are gone. So
you need playmakers. That's
what an edge rusher is, basically. An edge rusher makes your DBs and everybody look so much better if he's like, like these top ones.
Ralph, Ray, excuse me, Ralph.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. This guy does not have the same makeup
as Jamal Adams.
Jamal Adams. That's number 1. Number 2, if you're going to have to pay him, if he's that good, don't forget he might eventually, if his body fills out, become a linebacker.
Right.
But then you might have to pay him like that.
Yeah. Well, if he's a center fielder, the thing about Jamal Adams that was irritating is he never picks off a pass. You know, if this guy can read quarterbacks and he's got good instincts for that, then I'm all in on him, you know. But I don't want some guy who just dynamite in the box and blows up running plays. It's just not that impactful in the NFL these days.
I don't want to lose like we lost to the Raiders 2 years ago.
Right.
Because Lamar Jackson lets a guy get behind him, and nobody has the smarts. And Ralph, I've been talking to Ray about this guy I've been following on Cincinnati, the safety Bates.
Yeah.
That guy is a free agent. They're not going to let him go. They're going to franchise him. But that guy, he'll got great things. I'm telling you, this guy is a phenomenal ball player. That's the type of player I want. And that's
right. I want guys who read quarterbacks, definitely, whether they be DBs or linebackers. And we'll get into some of them later that I saw. Okay.
All right, Ray, why don't you start with, you're on the clock, and now this is the number 10 pick of the first round.
Yeah. Well, now I was turning to the other side of the ball. I think I really, even though there are some guys I think might be more dynamic, I want a lineman. And I was thinking about Lindbaum because he's the highest one, but he's a center, if I'm not mistaken. Right. And he doesn't look full size.
He can play guard too.
He could play guard. Yeah. But then I got reading about this, and I apologize for the pronunciation. Ikem Ekwan, a guard. And this guy sounds like what we need as a guard, kind of like Vera Tucker, but just on the other side. And I think if we have to stick with, was it McDermott at guard? Or, if we got to stick with, at center, then, I'd rather stick with him and get a stud of a guard.
Right. And
so I flip-flop between Lindbaum and Ekwan, but I think I like the sound of, at least what I read about him so far, Ekwan.
Yeah, he's kind of a road grader just for the fans.
Yeah.
From North Carolina State.
Yeah.
His measurements are 6'4", 320. That could change a little bit, but Ray, that's a great pick.
Yeah.
That guy is a monster.
He's similar to Vera Tucker in that he can play tackle, but he's a better guard.
Right.
So yeah,
so for depth too, he can always.
I definitely consider him.
Right. Okay. I'm going to go Ralph next. Okay. He might seem like a reach, but again, I want playmakers. That's my motivation going into this. I'm picking a guy that I think is phenomenal. He's a receiver from Arkansas, Traylon Burks.
Ooh, nice. Okay.
He's 6'3", 225. And this, again, I want playmakers and game changers. He's a 3-year starter down there. And Ralph, you're going to like this. They have to make special gloves for him. I call his hands Connie Hawkins' hands. He has gloves that measure like 5XL.
Are they soft hands? Big,
are they hands of stone? Or they?
He's got a tremendous catch radius and very deceptive speed. Big
sounds like Denzel Mims.
And against Alabama, that had a secondary that at least 3 and maybe 4 of the guys are going to get drafted. He had 8 receptions, 179 yards, 22.4 average per catch, and 2 TDs. They could not contain him, and he was playing with a sophomore quarterback who looks like he's going to be good if KJ Jefferson. But I think this guy is an unbelievable talent. So my second first-round pick, the 10th pick, is Traylon Burks. Okay, Ralph?
Okay. I had it down to 2 guys. One of them was Charles Cross, who's a good pure tackle blocker, and Tyler Linderbaum. I want to get another offensive lineman. I'm going to go with Linderbaum because a couple of things. He can play center and guard, and if we get Tyler, what's Connor McDermott? What's Connor McGovern back?
McGovern. Yeah, I said the same thing.
He can play. One of them can play center, one can play guard. I think McGovern, if they do get him back, this will be his last year. I just want a center I think this guy is a culture changer. You watch this guy, he is so intense. Guy is amazing. Remember how much you like Landon Peterson last year, Marty?
Yeah.
This guy actually graded out better than him last year before Peterson got hurt. He's like that. He just pile drives everyone into the ground. He's a wrestler. I saw a wrestling match when he was a sophomore in high school in Iowa. He went up against Tristan Wirfs, who was a senior. Wirfs had beat him 2 times, and this time Lindenbaum pinned him, and he's 2 years younger. This guy's got crazy intensity, and I think that'll we haven't had a center since Mangold, and I think it's really important. I think it'll change the culture of the offensive line.
Good pick. I like him, Ralph. And if you followed a lot of these message boards going back to like September, for whatever reason, Jet fans are in love with this guy.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I think it's a very good pick. All right, I'm going to go first now, and just so you guys know, when you let me give you my pick. Number 35. This is in the second round. I'm picking another wide receiver. I'm picking Jahan Dotson from Penn State. Now, he might sneak into the first round, but the reason I think they could get him there is I think some of these quarterbacks are going to be moving up at the last second. The reason I like Dotson is that he's got unbelievable pass radius. He's only 5'11", but he plays big. He catches everything thrown to him. He's got good speed. He creates yards after the catch. He's great on short, intermediate routes. And he's got incredible lateral quickness. And I want weapons. I want to help this young quarterback. Listen, I know we need linemen. And again, we're not through with this draft. But the one thing I'll tell you, too, and I know our defense, Ray, was not great. If you look at the 4 teams that were in the games over the weekend, all 4 coaches were offensive coordinators. Okay. I think our line improved. I'm not saying it's great, but how much of a difference, when you think about it, is the Jets' offensive line to the Cincinnati Bengals? I think they're pretty close, to be very honest with you. So I'm not saying I'm not going to pick offensive linemen, but I want weapons for this young quarterbacks, guys that can get separation. So my first pick in the second round is Jahan Dotson from Penn State. All right.
Go ahead, Ralph.
Ralph, you go.
Okay. Now, it's funny because I'm going to pick a defensive guy. And I agree with you. I think that you watch the playoffs and you realize, you can have the best defense in the world, but these quarterbacks are going to wear you down in the fourth quarter and they're going to start picking you apart. And although Mahomes didn't look very good last fourth quarter. But so, yeah, I want to definitely fortify the offense because, if Wilson doesn't make it, then we're back to ground zero. We have to start all over from scratch in 2 more years. So, and we have to do everything. Anyway, I'm going to pick a cornerback, my favorite cornerback in the draft, this guy from Washington, Trent McDuffie. And the thing I love about this guy is I want guys who love football. Tyler Linderbaum, you can see this guy eats, drinks football. Trent McDuffie, in addition to being a playmaker, he's one of these dynamic guys. When he picks off a pass, he doesn't just, he makes guys miss. He's a punt returner. And I've also seen him as a gunner, blow up guys. And when you're one of the stars of your team and you're blowing up guys as a gunner, the guy loves football. He's 5'11", which is perfectly fine for a cornerback. And I think he's been a shutdown cornerback. And I don't know if he'll be there. I think he'll go between 20 and 40. So if he's there, I'd love to have him.
Great pick, Ralph. I like him also. I think he's been moving up though. I mean,
I know.
I listened to all these guys, Mel Kiper and Todd McShay.
By the way, let me just say one thing. My biggest hope is that Douglas takes one of the first round picks and drops about 4 or 5 spots so we can get a mid to late second round pick. I want more picks.
We're going to have a draft like that. This is just a straight draft. We're going to do that.
Right.
I'm going to set up maybe on the next one. We're going to have some more picks without a doubt. And just so you know, in my case, if he did that and dropped to, like, say, 15, there's a good chance he could get my guy, Traylon Burks.
Definitely.
I happen to think
Or my guy, David Ojabo, if he.
Yeah, I think either of those guys, up to 20, I think you could get either of those guys.
Yeah, I think there's a real log jam, like after the first 3 or 4, there's like 15 or 20 guys you can throw a blanket over, and I think you'd be happy with a lot of them.
Right. All right, Ray, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Mario, when you said Burks, I thought that was a little high, but if you're taking Dotson too, then it makes a little more sense. I was kind of fighting with myself over another offensive lineman or not, but then I thought I think the best move at this point was to take at least the best rated at this point tight end, and I went with Trey McBride out of Washington.
Yeah.
And I think from the sound of him, he's big, he's physical. I believe, what I read is that he's a good blocker. I don't know about great, but that stuff can also be developed, but he seems to be the one who might be a difference maker at the tight end and actually hang on to the ball once in a while, which we haven't seen in a bit. So that to me is a big hole to fill. And if we can't do it in free agency, then I would like to see Trey McBride.
That's a great pick. Everything I've heard, he's like the number one tight end.
Yeah, he seems to be the highest rated one.
I've read that what a guy. Well, I'll tell you in a minute.
And what I'm seeing, Ray, is that I think they're going to sign one free agent and draft one, and maybe get another one. The guy if they end up drafting 2, look for your guy from Ohio State.
Well, or if they did bring in a free agent, I thought the next best one, if they wanted to go down a little, is a kid out of Texas. His name is Wyremuth.
No, it's Texas.
Weidermeyer.
Texas A&M, Jalen
Weidermeyer.
Who I actually think is the best tight end in the draft. He's different.
He sounded good too.
He's athletic. He's more athletic. He's not the big, classic. He's more of an athlete. But I was actually going to pick him in the next pick, but until I changed my mind at the last second.
Okay, Ralph, you're on the clock at pick number 38.
All right, I'm doing this pick because of Marty. Marty wants playmakers, and I'm going to pick a guy who, if this guy hadn't gotten hurt a year ago, I think he would have been the first or second receiver picked in the draft.
I know who it is.
I'm picking George Pickens from
pick.
Georgia. This guy, I think this guy is dynamite, and I just you watch this guy on film. I think he's spectacular, and someone's going to get a steal in the second round. He came back. Even in the championship game, he made one phenomenal catch. And this guy's like 8 months off of an ACL. I would love for the Jets to get him because for one thing, I love watching the guy.
Right.
And I think he's great value because he's back, he's playing, and he's a first-round talent.
Right. I think you're right. I think it's a great pick. And if my guy, I had him as an alternate later on if somebody picked my guys too. All right, Ray, as we're entering the fourth quarter, why don't you go? We'll pick up the pace a little bit.
I figured it was time to also go after an edge, and I was stuck on 2 guys. The first one being Logan Hall out of Houston, but I decided that, and I think he's more of a reach than Logan Hall coming out, but his upside, I think, makes him somebody I liked was Jordan Davis out of Georgia. He's like 6'6", 3. Actually, he's an inside guy. He's not an edge guy. He's the guy that he's not going to get sacks, but if we let Fadakasi go, nobody's running up the middle on us. This guy is a beast in the center of the line.
I don't know if he's going to be around though that late.
I don't know either.
That's
but
the only thing. If he is, it's a great pick.
I want some stout guys in the middle, and I'm also hoping Lawson comes back, so the edge thing is kind of
it's a great
one
pick.
that still take care of
If he's
himself.
available, it'll be great. They won't be able to run up the middle like they did.
No, he ain't going anywhere.
He's not moving. All right, my second first round pick is a guy who's up near Ralph. His name is Zion Johnson. He's a guard at BC, Boston College. And what I like about him, he last year was projected as a third and fourth round, but he ended up coming back this year. 6'3", 316. He has an ideal frame for a guard. He's unbelievable on the run, and he's incredibly strong. And his strength up till last year was not as a pass blocker, but he really improved, and it took a huge leap. He could also play tackle too. So that's my fourth pick, Zion Johnson, the guard from Boston College. Okay, now we're going to move on as we're winding down to the third round. So which number pick is this, Ralph?
69.
69, yeah.
69. All right. Ray, why don't you start?
All right. Well, until Stingley was still there at the first, I was set to go after Storm Duck out of North Carolina. He's 6'5", 205. The guy has
Oregon, yeah.
Yeah. I know he should, but and then I wanted to go with an edge, but I still want another lineman. And this one is a little bit of a project. He played at Minnesota. He's Australian, but he's one of these guys that learns. He's been learning and going up and up. He's a tackle, Daniel La'alele, 6'9", 380, and he can play tackle or probably or guard.
From Minnesota, right?
From Minnesota, yeah. And
Becton won't be the biggest guy on the team anymore.
No, but this guy sounds like he might be twice the athlete of Becton by the sound of him. I know he's a bit of a project or a stretch, but the way they talk about him, I think he'd be worth going, as a guard at the very least.
Right. Ralph, I got a question for you because I'm going to pick next, and I neglected to pick. I'm going to do it on the fly. Your pick, Trent McDuffie. What college is he from?
Washington.
Yeah.
It's interesting too. Their other corner is projected in the third round, Kyle Gordon.
Actually, he's projected by some people at like high second even. Yeah, Gordon, yeah. I know, it's amazing. They produce a lot of defensive backs, that school.
Yeah. Now, but I'm going to take another guy that is a little bit on the short side, but he reminds me of a former Jet. I forgot his name.
Just not another wide receiver, Marty, please.
No, not another wide receiver. It's a guy from Houston. I've heard a lot about him. Is a quarterback, Marcus Jones. He's an incredibly explosive ball hawk. The problem is he's 5'8", 185, but he plays like he's 6'2", 6'3". He's an incredible jumper. He's very, very aggressive. If he had another 1 inch or 2 inch, he'd be like a top 25 pick. But I'm going to take a shot on this guy in the third round. I would have tried actually one of the Rays tight end, but he'd be gone by then. Trey McBride.
Oh yeah, he's definitely the guy.
So I'm going to go with Marcus Jones. And Ralph, you're going to close it up now, I believe.
All right, I'm going to close it out, believe it or not, with a linebacker. I just fell in love with this guy watching film of him. He's from Wyoming, and his name is Chad Muma.
Great pick.
This guy, 6'3", 240. He had 2 pick sixes this year, and it's the amazing thing. You watch him after he catches the ball. He runs like a defensive back. He's a great athlete. And and he's a tackling machine. I think he led the country in tackles. But the thing I really love about him, and you'll love this too, Marty, is he reads quarterbacks. I mean, when he picks off pass, he's like anticipating. And, he's one of these guys who loves, he's a leader. He loves the game. And I think, we got one more year probably with CJ Mosley, and then I want him as my middle linebacker for the next 5 to 8 years.
What about Blake Cashman?
Well, you scared me for a second there, Ralph, because I thought for a second you said Chad Mamula, and I'm like, oh God. Remember Mike Mamula?
Son of Michael Mamula, yeah.
Interestingly, there's a linebacker on Cincinnati, this guy Nelson. and he's from Wyoming too, and he was like a 3rd-round pick, and he's playing like he's a 1st-round pick.
Yeah.
He had like 6 picks this year in a season.
Wow.
That for a linebacker, that's excellent. So
Oh, yeah.
maybe there's some sort of besides the Josh Allen, maybe there's some sort of linebacker legacy over at Wyoming.
Maybe.
I think these are all good picks. Just so you guys know, today was the measuring day over in Mobile, Alabama.
Uh-huh.
And they measure these guys, the heights and whatever. And interestingly, Kenny Pickett refused to have his hands measured, which because he's got small hands, which I think is ridiculous. Because if you guys remember, I mean, what's his name? Joe Burrow doesn't have the biggest hands.
Right. And Marco Rubio, he didn't have big hands either, did he?
Drew Brees. That's right.
Right.
Yeah. But I think they're all good picks. We're going to have our 2.0 draft next time, and I'm going to play around with trading back on probably the second 1st-round pick to accumulate some more picks, and maybe we'll go into the 4th round, and we'll see what picks we have. So anything else before we close this out, guys, for Jets Rewind? Big day.
I'll just quickly, I'll throw out a name here in the 4th round, a guy that Ray probably is familiar with. I think is going to be a steal in the middle rounds. Is the wide receiver from Cincinnati, Alec Pierce. Love that guy. And I think I think the Jets got a shot at him in the 4th round.
Yeah, we're going to see a few people out of Cincy in this.
They got a lot of good players this year. Sanders is very good too, and Devin Lloyd. If I needed a linebacker later in the round, I would have gone with Devin Lloyd.
Right. Yeah, Devin. But Ralph, the one thing, and Ray, the guy from Sanders from Cincinnati, he was off as far as sacks, and I think you can't overlook that. If you looked at the Alabama game, he had like 9 or 10 quarterback pressures.
Yeah,
it's very, very good. So I really like that guy also. I actually hope he drops a little bit. Maybe the Jets could steal him in a later round. Bless you. All right, for Steve Ray Clifford, Ralph Schrager, Marty Schumer, we're going to close this out for Jets Rewind. Until next time.
Less than a minute.
Uh-oh.
Okay. All right, guys.
We're still recording,